The Art of a Lie, a novel by Laura Shepard Robinson. Print length, 304 pages. Publication date, August 5th, 2025. In 18th century England, a widowed confectioner is drawn into a web of love, betrayal, and intrigue and a battle of wits in this masterful historical novel from the author of the delicious puzzle box of a novel, The New York Times, and USA Today bestseller The Square of Sevens. Following the murder of her husband in what looks like a violent street robbery, Hannah Cole is struggling to keep her head above water. Her confectionery shop on Piccadilly is barely turning a profit, her suppliers conspiring to put her out of business because they don't like women in trade. Henry Fielding, the famous author-turned-magistrate, is threatening to confiscate the money in her husband's bank account because he believes it might have been illicitly acquired. And even those who claim to be Hannah's friends have darker intent. Only William Devereux seems different. A friend of her late husband, Devereux helps Hannah unravel some of the mysteries surrounding his death. He also tells her about an Italian delicacy called iced cream, an innovation she is convinced will transform the fortunes of her shop. But their friendship opens Hannah to speculation and gossip and draws Henry Fielding's attention her way, locking her into a battle of wits more devastating than anything she can imagine. When the Cranes Fly South, a novel by Lisa Ridzén. Print length, 293 pages. Publication date, August 19th, 2025. International bestseller, winner of the Swedish Book of the Year award, a profoundly moving debut novel that follows an elderly man's attempts to mend his relationship with his son before it's too late. An emotional story of love, friendship, fatherhood, dogs, and atonement that is already an international sensation. One of those you'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll want to buy 20 copies and give them to everyone you love books. Fredrik Backman, best-selling author of A Man Called Ove in The New Yorker. A powerful, sneakily emotional meditation on life and death and the foundational relationships in our lives. This is a book that will echo in your soul. Garth Stein, New York Times best-selling author of The Art of Racing in the Rain. Beau is running out of time. Yet time is one of the few things he's got left. These days, his quiet existence is broken up only by daily visits from his home care team. Fortunately, he still has his beloved Elkhound 6'10" to keep him company, though now his son, with whom Beau has had a rocky relationship, insists upon taking the dog away, claiming that Beau has grown too old to properly care for him. The threat of losing 6'10" stirs up a whirlwind of emotion, leading Beau to take stock of his life, his relationships, and the imperfect way he's expressed his love over the years. Rehab, an American Scandal by Shoshana Walter. Print length, 320 pages. Publication date, August 12th, 2025. Pulitzer finalist Shoshana Walter exposes the country's failed response to the opioid crisis and the malfeasance, corruption, and snake oil which blight the drug rehabilitation industry. Our country's leaders all seem to agree. People who suffer from addiction need treatment. Today, more people have access to treatment than ever before. So why isn't it working? The answer is that in America, where anyone can get addicted, only certain people get a real chance to recover. Despite record numbers of overdose deaths, our default response is still to punish, while rehabs across the United States fail to incorporate scientifically proven strategies and exploit patients. We've heard a great deal about the opioid crisis foisted on America by Big Pharma, but we've heard too little about the other half of this epidemic, the reason why so many remain mired in addiction. Until now. In this book, you'll find the stories of 4 people who represent the failures of the rehab industrial complex and the ways our treatment system often prevents recovery. April is a Black mom in Philadelphia who witnessed firsthand how the government's punitive response to the crack epidemic impeded her own mother's recovery, and then her own. Chris, a young middle-class white man from Louisiana, received more opportunities in his addiction than April, including the chance to go to treatment instead of prison. Yet the only program the judge permitted was one that forced him to perform unpaid backbreaking labor at for-profit companies. Wendy is a mother from a wealthy suburb of Los Angeles whose son died in a sober living home. She began investigating for-profit treatment programs, yet law enforcement and regulators routinely ignored her warnings, allowing rehab patients to die again and again. Larry is a surgeon who himself struggled with addiction, who would eventually become one of the first Suboxone prescribers in the nation, drawing the scrutiny of the Drug Enforcement Administration. Together, these 4 stories illustrate the pitfalls of a system that not only fails to meet the needs of people with addiction, but actively benefits from maintaining their lower status. They also offer insight into how we might fix that system and save lives. Baldwin, a love story by Nicholas Boggs. Print length, 706 pages. Publication date, August 19, 2025. Drawing on new archival material, original research, and interviews, this spellbinding book is the first major biography of James Baldwin in 3 decades, revealing how profoundly his personal relationships shaped his life and work. Baldwin, a love story, the first major biography of James Baldwin in 3 decades, reveals how profoundly the writer's personal relationships shaped his life and work. Drawing on newly uncovered archival material and original research and interviews, this spellbinding book tells the overlapping stories of Baldwin's most sustaining intimate and artistic relationships with his mentor, the Black American painter Buford Delaney, with his lover and muse, the Swiss painter Lucien Happersberger, and with his collaborators, the famed Turkish actor Engin Sezer and the iconoclastic French artist Joran Kazak, whose long-overlooked significance as Baldwin's last great love is explored in these pages for the first time. Nicholas Boggs shows how Baldwin drew on all the complex forces within these relationships, geographical, cultural, political, artistic, and erotic, and alchemized them into novels, essays, and plays that speak truth to power and had an indelible impact on the civil rights movement and on Black and queer literary history. Richly immersive, Baldwin, a love story follows the writer's creative journey between Harlem, Paris, Switzerland, the southern United States, Istanbul, Africa, the south of France, and beyond. In so doing, it magnifies our understanding of the public and private lives of one of the major literary figures of the 20th century, whose contributions only continue to grow in influence. Mean Moms, a novel by Emma Rosenblum. Print length, 296 pages. Publication date, July 29, 2025. Meet Frost, Morgan, and Belle, a wealthy, gorgeous group of New York City moms, the queen bees of downtown Manhattan. Their children attend Atherton Academy, the top private school in the city, and their social lives revolve around elaborate themed parties. On the first day of school, the arrival of a new mom and mysterious beauty from Miami, Sophia, shakes up their world. When Sophia quickly integrates herself into their clique, inexplicably bad things start to happen to the women. Is someone at school out to get them? Spanning the course of one eventful school year in New York, Mean Moms is part satire of upper-crust mom-ing and part mystery, interrogating the line between friendship and jealousy and getting at the question: what would happen if the woman standing next to you at school pickup was actually a sociopath? The Hounding, a novel by Xenobe Purvis. Print length, 228 pages. Publication date, August 5, 2025. The Crucible meets the Virgin Suicides in this haunting debut about 5 sisters in a small village in 18th century England whose neighbors are convinced they're turning into dogs. Even before the rumors about the Mansfield girls begin, Little Nettlebed is a village steeped in the uncanny, from strange creatures that wash up on the riverbank to portentous ravens gathering on the roofs of people about to die. But when the villagers start to hear barking, and one claims to see the Mansfield sisters transform before his very eyes, the allegations spark fascination and fear like nothing as before. The truth is that though the inhabitants of Little Nettlebed have never much liked the Mansfield girls, a little odd, think some, a little high on themselves, perhaps, they've always had plenty to say about them. As the rotating perspectives of 5 villagers quickly make clear, now is no exception. Even if local belief in witchcraft is waning, an aversion to difference is as widespread as ever, and these conflicting narratives all point to the same ultimate conclusion. Something isn't right in Little Nettlebed, and the sisters will be the ones to pay for it. A richly atmospheric parable of the pleasures and perils of female defiance, the Hounding considers whether in any age it might be safer to be a dog than an unusual young girl. The Fort Bragg Cartel, Drug Trafficking and Murder in the Special Forces by Seth Harp. Print length, 356 pages. Publication date, August 12, 2025. A groundbreaking investigation into a string of unsolved murders at America's premier special operations base, and what the crimes reveal about drug trafficking and impunity among elite soldiers in today's military. In December 2020, a deer hunter discovered 2 dead bodies that had been riddled with bullets and dumped in a forested corner of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. One of the dead men, Master Sergeant William Billy Levine, was a member of Delta Force, the most secretive Black Ops unit in the military. A deeply traumatized veteran of America's classified assassination program, Levine had done more than a dozen deployments in his lengthy career, was addicted to crack cocaine, dealt drugs on base, and had committed a series of violent crimes before he was mysteriously killed. The other victim, Chief Warrant Officer Timothy Dumas, was a quartermaster attached to the Special Forces who used his proximity to clandestine missions to steal guns and traffic drugs into the United States from abroad, and had written a blackmail letter threatening to expose criminality in the Special Operations Task Force in Afghanistan. As soon as Seth Harp, an Iraq war veteran and investigative reporter, begins looking into the double murder, he learns that there have been many more unexplained deaths at Fort Bragg recently, other murders connected to drug trafficking in elite units, and dozens of fatal overdoses. Drawing on declassified documents, trial transcripts, police records, and hundreds of interviews, Harp tells a scathing story of narco-trafficking in the Special Forces, drug conspiracies abetted by corrupt police, blatant military cover-ups, American complicity in the Afghan heroin trade, and the pernicious consequences of continuous war. The Magician of Tiger Castle by Louis Sachar. Print length, 315 pages. Publication date, August 5, 2025. The beloved author of Holes presents his first adult novel, a modern fantasy classic of forbidden love, a crumbling kingdom, and the unexpected magic all around us. Long ago and far away, and somewhere south of France, lies the kingdom of Esquiveta. There, Princess Tulia is in nearly as much peril as her struggling kingdom. Esquiveta desperately needs to forge an alliance, and to that end, Tulia's father has arranged a marriage between her and an odious prince. However, 1 month before the wedding of the century, Tulia falls in love with a lowly apprentice scribe. The king turns to Anatole, his much-maligned magician. 17 years earlier, when Anatole first came to the castle, he was regarded as something of a prodigy. But after a long series of failures, the latest being an attempt to transform sand into gold, he has become the object of contempt and ridicule. The only one who still believes in him is the princess. When the king orders Anatole to brew a potion that will ensure Tulia agrees to the wedding, Anatole is faced with an impossible choice. With one chance to save the marriage, the kingdom, and, of most importance to him, his reputation, will he betray the princess or risk ruin? King of Kings, The Iranian Revolution, a story of hubris, delusion, and catastrophic miscalculation by Scott Anderson. Print length, 746 pages. Publication date, August 5, 2025. On New Year's Eve, 1977, on a state visit to Iran, President Jimmy Carter toasted Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, King of Kings, Light of the Aryans, Shadow of God on Earth, praising Iran as an island of stability due to your leadership and the respect and admiration and love which your people give to you. Iran had the world's 5th largest army and was awash in billions of dollars in oil revenues. Construction cranes dotted the skyline of its booming capital, Tehran. The regime's feared secret police force Savak had crushed communist opposition, and the Shah had bought off the conservative Muslim clergy inside the country. He seemed invulnerable and invaluable to the United States as an ally in the Cold War. 14 months later, the Shah fled Iran into exile, forced from the throne by a volcanic religious revolution led by a fiery cleric named Ayatollah Khomeini. The ensuing hostage crisis forever damaged America's standing in the world. How could the United States, which had one of the largest CIA stations in the world and thousands of military personnel in Iran, have been so blind? The spellbinding story Scott Anderson weaves is one of a dictator blind to the disdain of his subjects and a superpower blundering into disaster. Scott Anderson tells this astonishing tale with the narrative brio, mordant wit, and keen analysis that made his best-selling Lawrence of Arabia one of the key texts in understanding the modern Middle East. The Iranian Revolution, Anderson convincingly argues, was as world-shattering an event as the French and Russian revolutions. In the Middle East, in India, in Southeast Asia, in Europe, and now in the United States, the hatred of economically marginalized, religiously fervent masses for a wealthy secular elite has led to violence and upheaval, and Iran was the template. King of Kings is a bravura work of history and a warning. Loved One, a novel by Aisha Muharrar. Print length, 331 pages. Publication date, August 12, 2025. From an Emmy Award-winning writer comes a funny, wise, heartbreaking story about a woman journeying into the unknown in the wake of sudden loss. When her first love turned close friend, Gabe, dies unexpectedly at 29, 30-year-old Julia is launched into an intercontinental quest to recover his lost possessions. Her journey takes her from Los Angeles to London and into the murky realm of the past. It also sets Julia on a collision course with the last woman he loved, a guarded, self-possessed florist and restaurateur named Elizabeth, who insists on withholding Gabe's beloved guitar, one of the departed indie rock musician's dearest belongings, for reasons Julia can't understand. Both women, it turns out, have something to hide and soon find themselves engaged in a complex dance of withholding and revelation. An emotional mystery spanning years, continents, and relationship statuses, Loved One introduces Aisha Muharrar as a novelist intimately attuned to the intricacies of love, memory, and ambiguous loss. What happens when we admit that the deepest feelings never die? How do we reconcile various, and sometimes contradictory, truths about those closest to us? An engrossing and profoundly moving coming-of-age story with a powerful love at its heart, Loved One is poised to become an instant classic.